what if one person's mind could hold an entire library? I mean, really think about that. Today, we're digging into the incredible story of a man whose life's work was so unbelievably vast, it took a whole book just to list it all. So our whole story kicks off with this one kind of unassuming book from 1921. You look at it and you just see a dusty old volume, right? But what's inside? Well, it's not the story of a man's life, it's more like the index to it. See, this isn't a book by some author, it's a bibliography. A detailed, exhaustive catalog of every poem, every legal argument, every philosophical thought, every single translation one man ever put down on paper. Which, brings up a pretty big question. Who on earth was this guy? Who was Albert Pike? And how could one person possibly create such an enormous and ridiculously diverse body of work? To really wrap our heads around the writing, we have to understand the man. And Albert Pike, well, he was without a doubt a forgotten American giant, a true 19th century polymath whose life was just as varied and complex as his bibliography.
And this really gets to the core of who he was. Born in Boston, Pike passes the entrance exams for Harvard. Pretty impressive. But he couldn't afford to actually go. So what does he do? He becomes a school teacher and decides to teach himself the entire Harvard curriculum on his own time. That incredible determination, that self-reliance, that's the engine for everything he's about to do.
And you know what? That incredible intellect got him noticed, and fast. His early poetry was so good that the editor of a really big deal magazine, Blackwood's, called him the common poet of America. That's not just a nice compliment, that's a huge proclamation. But Pike wasn't the kind of guy who was going to be content just sitting in a room writing poetry. His life was just a whirlwind of action, taking him from the wild American frontier all the way to the heat of the battlefield. Just look at this timeline. It's a life in constant motion. He wasn't just some stuffy scholar. He was an adventurer who traveled west and lived among Native American tribes. He became a lawyer, a newspaper editor, a cavalry captain in the Mexican War, and yep, even a brigadier general for the Confederacy. And then, in 1850, he makes a move that would change the entire course of his life. He joins the Freemasons. Okay, so now that we have a feel for the man himself, let's circle back to that book. It's time to unveil the true, honestly mind-boggling scope of what this one guy actually wrote. This right here, this is the actual table of contents from that 1921 bibliography. And the scale of it is just shocking. You can see these huge categories like general literature, Masonic works, and unpublished manuscripts. But then you realize that inside each one is just a ridiculously long list of everything he produced. Here's a cleaner way to look at it. Under just general literature alone, you've got biography, language, law, military stuff, poetry, political and economic works, and that's just one section. It is, quite literally, the library of a single mind. So let's break it down. What exactly did he write about? Well, first up, of course, was poetry. That's what first made him famous. Then there was law, and we're not talking small-time stuff. He was a top attorney who argued cases before the Supreme Court, and he wrote these incredibly dense legal texts. And being a decorated soldier, yeah, he also wrote about military affairs, pulling directly from his own experiences on the battlefield. But here's where it starts to get really surprising. He actually compiled vocabularies of Native American languages, something he started during his time out on the frontier. And then, just to blow your mind, he produced translations from Sanskrit, one of the oldest and most difficult languages on the planet. I mean, the man's curiosity had absolutely no limits. And just to give you a sense of the sheer volume we're talking about, this is just one page from the bibliography, and it only lists his legal briefs. Every single line is a different complex case. The book has pages and pages just like this. It's insane. But out of all his incredible accomplishments, there was one area that really came to define his legacy more than anything else: his work with the Freemasons. Just think about how fast he rose through the ranks. He joins in 1850. In less than 9 years, he becomes Grand Commander of the Southern Jurisdiction. We're talking about the leader of what was basically the most influential Masonic group in the world at the time. His rise was just completely unheard of. The people around here were just in awe. He wasn't just some leader, he was a philosophical and intellectual powerhouse. They gave him these incredible titles like the Homer of America for his poetry, and get this, the Zoroaster of modern Asia for his deep philosophical work. Which brings us right back to all those books, all those pages, all that work. Because there is one final, absolutely critical detail about Pike's massive body of work that, well, it changes everything. And here it is, the most stunning fact of all, straight from the author of the bibliography himself. It is an interesting fact that he never published any book for sale. Let that sink in for a second. All of it, the poetry, the military analysis, the translations, everything outside of his day job as a lawyer was printed at his own expense, and then he just gave it away. And that is the ultimate puzzle of Albert Pike, isn't it? He spent his entire life building a universe of knowledge, not for money, not for fame, but just to share it. Which leaves us with this one profound question that really defines his legacy. Why would someone create an entire library's worth of work only to give it all away for free?